Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... Before we get started on this weekend's book review, I just want to say I hope everyone is doing well, especially with the coronavirus scare still going on, and if you're feeling under the weather, I hope you feel better soon. Also, I just want to say that I'm sorry this video is a little late because there was one or two things that delayed me this week. One was I had my very first panic attack earlier in the week, and I thought it was a heart attack. But after getting it checked out, it was in fact a panic attack, so I'm on meds for that, and because of that issue, the entire day was gone. And afterwards, we have had people working on some jobs on our property, and that's caused some heavy machinery sounds in the background, and I didn't want to film while that was going on and it'd be a distraction. But also, at the same time, under quarantine, like, every day just bleeds into the next. Like, I honestly did not think this was the weekend. I thought it was like Wednesday or Thursday, but here we are. I know I had reserved March to review books that had been recommended to me by viewers, but I want to expand this out for one more weekend because a friend of mine by the name of Ania is currently under the weather, and I want to do this to cheer her up. Now, she had recommended to me the book The Manitou by Graham Masterton, and I had planned to review this in the future after I had read the entire series, which there's 6 books in the series, and at the moment I've only read 2. But considering the circumstances, I wanted to go in and just put this out into the universe. So, with Ania and myself, we met each other about a year ago, and it was with a circle of friends where we had all gone out to eat, and just about any gathering that I'm involved in when we go eat, it ends up coming to my home afterwards. And so we were sitting on the back porch, and it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and we were all just sitting around, joking, talking about books, movies, music, all of that good stuff, just being our normal geeky selves. And we brought up the subject of horror literature, and this is when Ania said that she had read Graham Masterton. And I was really excited about this because I had not ever read Masterton before, even though I was familiar with his name. And also, I had not met anyone who was a fan of his. So this was really a great opportunity for me to kind of just pick around a little bit and see exactly what I could expect from his work. And seeing that she was the seasoned fan that she was, I had asked her what book would be a good starter for me. And she had said that The Manitou was really a great book. And so as soon as she recommended that, I went out and downloaded it onto my e-reader. And I knew that this was in the subgenre of like demonic possession and stuff like that. But what I didn't anticipate was a book that was such a gross out that it would honestly make Dr. Pimple Popper proud. Unfortunately, I don't have a print copy of The Manitou, but it is available in print as well as ebook and audiobook, so you can get a copy of this in your hands before the day is over. Now, with this book, it is very fast-paced, and as soon as you start it, you are thrown into the chaos of what's going to happen throughout the rest of the book. And we are introduced to a character by the name of Dr. McAvoy, and he is trying to find a second opinion for his patient by the name of Karen Tandy. And the thing is with Karen is she has this really bad tumor on the back of her neck. And what you need to know about that tumor is, in the matter of 3 days, it's already grown to be the size of like a paperweight. Also, it's moving around on its own. And what the doctors haven't told her is when they took an x-ray of this tumor, they discovered it actually has a fetus inside of it. So they decide to go in and get this removed and get it out of their way, and they schedule an appointment for her surgery the following day. Well, Karen leaves the hospital and she goes to visit this psychic guy by the name of Harry Erskine. And Harry is a total fraud, by the way. He might set up shop like he's a psychic, but total skeptic. Well, she explains to him about the procedure she's going to have and how scared she is, and also about some really weird dreams she's been having about the past. And he actually feels sorry for her. So he tries to advise her of like how to do things and just simply let everything take its course because it's going to be fine. And so he feels like he has put her mind at rest. And he even says that he's going to continue researching some of the subjects that she spoke of, and he's going to come up there to the hospital and see how she's doing after surgery. Well, the next day comes and he goes up to the hospital and he poses as her uncle to see how she's doing. And this is when he learns that they have not been able to remove the tumor because it has grown to the point where it's like a Siamese twin. And if they remove it now, it could kill her. So from here on, Harry is set on saving Karen. And in order to do this, he has to put all of his skepticism aside and start believing in the supernatural. And what we learn is the tumor on the back of Karen's neck there is actually the house of what's going to be the reincarnation of the most powerful medicine man who has ever lived. And this is the medicine man known as Misquamicus. Now, once Misquamicus is born, he plans to open the gates and make way for the great old one. That way he can have his revenge on the land for when he and all of his people had been killed. When David Howell interviewed Graham Masterton, he revealed that his first horror novel, The Manitou, took him only 1 week to write. And as far as inspiration was concerned, Masterton was inspired by 2 subjects. One was a 1955 Buffalo Bill Wild West annual. The second one was his wife being pregnant with their firstborn child. In the original version of the Manitou, which was published by Lindell and Spearman, Misquamicus was killed by a venereal disease called Vietnam Rose. However, when reprinted in paperback by Pinnacle, the editor requested an ending change. Before moving on, if you are wondering what a Manitou is, it is a good or evil spirit as an object of reverence. Fun facts! Here's a few things you may or may not know about Graham Masterton. Graham Masterton is a British horror author who is an Edgar Award and Bram Stoker Award winner. Also, he is a World Fantasy Award nominee. In 2019, Masterton was given a Lifetime Achievement Award by the Horror Writers Association. Also, he was the editor of Scare Care, a horror anthology published for the benefit of abused children in Europe and America. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoilers section of this video. And this is going to be where I discuss some moments that could ruin the experience of this book for you if you've never read it before. If you wish to skip this section, just scroll down to the comments and you'll see that I have a pinned comment with a timestamp inside of it. If you were to click that timestamp, it will redirect you away from the spoilers section and bring you to the Thoughts chapter. You only have 17 seconds to do this. So, ready, set, go. Now that everyone has had a chance to click away, I want to talk about a few of my favorite scenes, and the majority of these take place at the end of the book. So if you're still watching and you haven't clicked away, I urge you, click away before I reveal the ending of this book because this could ruin the experience for you. Now, before I get to that moment though, I do want to talk about a few honorable mentions that I felt were definitely worthy to speak about. And one is in regards to the possession of a woman by the name of Miss Hertz. And what happens here is Miss Hertz has gone to see Harry Erskine for a card reading. And as they are speaking, Misquamicus ends up possessing her, and he causes her to levitate, and he throws her down a stairwell. And how this is played out, it's just so full of intensity. It's like every word and sentence that builds this imagery for this scene. It's just something that had me on the edge of my seat. And the next moment that I felt was really cool is the scene where Harry Erskine is actually participating in a real seance with his gifted friends, and they're sitting around this wooden table. And they are able to conjure up the spirit that is troubling Karen. And it comes into the tabletop itself, like the face of the spirit emerges in the wooden tabletop. And they're able to see how this Manitou looks. And what's so cool about this is with the Manitou, he's able to manipulate things that were nature-based. And with the table being a wooden table, we see where he's able to manipulate that wood in that piece of furniture. So I felt that was really original, and as I was reading the sequel to this book, I really felt like moments such as this that were in the first book, it really built the intensity for what could be possible in the next book. So that was really original and cool. Now, this is when shit gets real, because you have the character named Harry who joins forces with a modern-day medicine man by the name of Singing Rock, and together they go to the hospital and put a protective circle around Karen's bed, and this is supposed to prevent Miss Squamacus from being able to leave that circle. But after they do this, all they can do is just wait, like, there's nothing they can do to prevent the horror that's going to come. They can only battle it once it has been birthed. Well, as they're waiting around, Miss Squamacus finally gets birthed. And I can tell that Masterton really enjoyed writing this scene because the description he goes into is just something where I imagine him just gleefully writing this, knowing that he's going to gross people out. And so you have Miss Squamacus who's broken free from Karen, and at this point he's the size of a dwarfed person because all of the x-rays have deformed him. And at this point, we actually get the detail on how it smells when the tumor in Karen's neck burst. And from there, it even gets grosser because the nurse who was sitting with Karen gets turned inside out. And you just see her meaty figure just all bloody and stuff. And it's such a good gross out, too. It's something that, it's a gorehound's wet dream come true. That's exactly what it is. But wait, there's more, because for the next 40% of this book, you have an epic showdown between the two medicine men. And Miss Squamacus actually summons a demon that's known as the Star Demon. And the only way it can be sent back from where it came is if it receives a blood sacrifice, and truth be it receives just that. Now, after this goes down, Singing Rock determines that they need a new game plan. So they go to a different level of the hospital to try to reevaluate and everything, and you have a side character who comes in at this point by the name of Lieutenant Marino. And he's been in and out of the story a little bit ever since Miss Hertz had died, and he thinks that Harry is the reason why she's dead, but he just doesn't have enough proof to pin anything on Harry. So he and his men end up showing up, and they explain to Lieutenant Marino what's going on, and of course he wants to see this for himself, so he ends up sending about 11 of his men down on the level where Miss Squamacus is. And, well, of course, what happens is what you would expect would happen. All of his men get slaughtered, and Miss Squamacus uses their blood to open a gateway so the Great Old One can pass through. At this point, Singing Rock explains to Harry that he doesn't believe he can send Miss Squamacus back because, in a nutshell, they need white man's technology to do it. And the reason why is because white man is the reason why the Native Americans died out to start with. So anyway, he's explaining to Harry that everything has a Manitou in it. Even modern day inanimate objects have a Manitou in them. And it just so happens that the hospital and everyone is working with a security system called Unitech. And anyway, of course, this was a security system created by a white man. So they end up using the security system where Harry summons the Manitou within that computerized system to be his ammunition against Miss Squamacus. And from here, Harry and Singing Rock, they return to the isolated level where Misquamicus is, which at this point has become like just this frozen hell that has all of these rat-like creatures just running around. And because of him being able to summon the Manitou of Unitech, Harry has an upper hand over Misquamicus, and because of Harry and Singing Rock working together, they're finally able to send this dude back to hell. Truth be it, I did not find anything whatsoever to bitch about with the main characters of this book. Because, for example, with Harry, you see a growth there. He starts off as a con artist, but then by the end of the book, he's become this strong-hearted individual who's laying his neck on the line for a complete stranger. And also with Singing Rock, yeah, he does tie a fee to the exorcism he's going to perform, but you also see how he grows from that moment. And by the way these characters are described and how I feel like they grew and how I imagine them to appear, I wouldn't kick them out of my bed. Sorry, Carrie, but I wouldn't. Anyway, the characters who I did not like. I did not care for the lieutenant and his men because they were total stereotypes and they were bumbling asses. And when his men went down to the level where Misquamicus was, I'm like, they all gonna die. But I didn't mind them dying because I really had no emotional ties to them. There was no character background for them. And at first I just simply thought that these were characters that were simply written to be written and there was nothing great that they could offer. But I was wrong. They did die, and they ended up dying not in vain because Misquamicus used their blood to open a portal. So this lets me know whenever I read a book by Masterton, any character, no matter how big or small, they are going to be used one way or another. Okay, this is going to sound weird, but just hear me out. I believe the Manitou has a pretty deep message to it, which it is a message that reminds us America was built on bloodshed and genocide. And in a metaphoric sense, I find it interesting that the tumor that Misquamicus lives in is placed on the back of Karen's neck. The reason I say this is because you could jokingly say that the past is a pain in the neck, but at the same time, this is also an idea of how some people try to ignore the past and put it behind them and sweep it under the rug. And when that happens, the past always comes back to haunt us. So I think that this is urging people to acknowledge what has happened in the past and to not ignore it. I feel, messages aside, I feel that the book was a great book, and I do think it is a dated book, though. And I say this because it was written in the 1970s, and you do see frequent terms pop up in the book, such as redskin or red man, which we know that is not the politically correct term. And Native American was a term that was really a popular one that came later on, so I believe that this is honestly a product of its time. Now, as I was reading, I was a little afraid that Masterton was going to demonize Native Americans with this book. And then when he introduced the character by the name of Singing Rock, I saw that this was not the case whatsoever, because what we had here were two polar opposites. Misquamicus being evil and Singing Rock being good. And it was really cool to see how those two battled it out. And I really also appreciated the fact that he did not make Singing Rock a stereotype. He was not decked out like any sort of stereotypical character. He was just like you and me. So I really have to applaud that fact. And I was very happy to see that this was not a book that was demonizing Native Americans whatsoever, but presenting an idea that was similar to The Exorcist, but in a Native American stance. Overall, I really enjoyed The Manitou by Graham Masterton, and I highly recommend it. It had some awesome gross-out scenes, plus the character development was really good, and the pacing was very fast and suspenseful, And what I really liked was, even though we did have the gross outs here, it never affected the character development, nor did it affect the strong storyline that it had going on. And as far as books that kind of piggybacked off of The Exorcist, I would have to say that this is up there among some of the best. Okay, on to the questions. My first question is, since I really love Native American folklore and just the whole culture in general, what are some Native American horror books that you would recommend to me? And I would really like for these to be books that have been written by Native Americans, so please load up my comment section on what you would suggest for that. Secondly, since this book is about reincarnation, do you believe in reincarnation? Why or why not? Personally, I believe that it is possible for a person to be reincarnated. I don't think I've ever been reincarnated, but I totally believe that you can be reincarnated if that is your wish in the afterlife. So it's not something that I'm closed-minded to, and especially with people who claim to be reincarnated, it is very interesting to hear why they think that they were, or what they think they were in a past life. So if you want to elaborate that far, feel free to do so, because I'm really interested to see what you have to say on the subject. Now that we have that out of the way, it's time to wrap up the video, which again, I'm sorry that this video is late, but there was just a lot going on, and also being in quarantine has really messed up my days where I honestly didn't think it was so late in the week. So I do apologize. But I would like to say thank you to Lisa G and Joseph Baylott for contributing to my Patreon account. If you would like to contribute as well, just go to the description section of this video and click on my Patreon link. For $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos. For $10 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos. Plus, at the beginning of every month, I'll send you over one of my photography pieces. And if you're unable to contribute, that's fine, no sweat whatsoever. All I hope is that you continue to return to my channel and just have a good time with me, and us just simply have fun recommending and discussing books. And if you would like to find me on social media, my links for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all available in the description section of this video as well, so feel free to send me a friend request. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell, because I have tons of other book reviews coming in the near future. And until we see each other again, I hope this finds you in great spirits and sweet nightmares.